Little Death is a movie starring David Schwimmer and produced by Darren Aronofsky that premiered at this year's Sundance Film Festival. It comes to you from first-time director Jack Begert, who is previously known for directing music videos from artists like Olivia, Rodrigo, and Jack Harlow. He also co-wrote the script alongside Dani Goffstein. This movie takes some serious narrative risks. It's better to describe Little Death almost like it's two different movies. Rather than follow a traditional plot structure, midway through, the movie swings in a wildly different direction and focuses on an entirely new set of characters. What unites both halves of the film is that both stories that are featured in Little Death focus on prescription drug use and the way that can affect people. In that respect, it definitely feels like something that a protege of Darren Aronofsky would create. It's hard to shake the influence from Requiem for a Dream, although Requiem is definitely a much more heavy film than Little Death, which has a more comedic tone. The first half of the movie focuses on a character named Martin, played by David Schwimmer. This guy is kind of a washed out, depressed, middle-aged screenwriter who's always popping pills. One notable thing about this portion of the film is that there are these trippy dream sequences that feature AI-generated imagery. Now, I knew going into Little Death that there was going to be some AI-generated imagery, but I was surprised at just how much of it was used for this film. Even in the very first moments of the movie, you start to see these AI-generated images. Now, it's not like these images were 100% created by robots. There were visual effects artists who worked on this film, who likely cleaned up the AI photos and strung them together in a way that was more cohesive. But I don't think this film was enhanced by including something that's frankly pretty controversial, replacing human work with that of an AI image generator, even if it was just a part of that human work. So I have some more thoughts on that, but let's put a pin in that for a minute. So Martin is a character, again, he's kind of washed out, he's depressed, he's also pretty misogynistic. He harbors resentment at the film and television industry as a screenwriter, especially when he's asked to change a character in a script he's writing from male to female. There's some pretty delicate subject matter that's covered in this first part of the film. While it's important to note that a portrayal of something isn't equal to an endorsement, I do think in that portrayal you can end up feeding into the energy of that negative thing you're portraying. And to me, that's what I felt like was going on at this part of the movie. There's some very surface level commentary about some multi-layered subjects, and it felt like it needed a little more TLC and also time in order for this to work. And therein lies one of the biggest issues with this movie. Just when Martin's story starts to get its wheels turning, the movie veers in a different direction, totally focusing on a different plot and different characters. In the latter half of the movie, we have a story that's focused on two drug addicts who are also trying to run this taco truck business as they search for a missing car. It goes from this movie that's kind of this trippy, contemplative film about a writer to something that's a much more grounded, character-driven story. And in my opinion, it succeeds much more in this part of the movie than it did in the beginning. Talia Ryder and Dominic Fike give incredibly convincing performances, and I felt myself hooked into their characters' stories. This part of the story doesn't feel like it's trying to do something over the top and wild. There's no shock gimmicks in there, there's no AI-generated imagery, it's just trying to tell a story. But by the time it got to the end of that story, this also felt like it was cut short. Neither of the film's two plot lines felt like they were giving you a complete movie. That said, there's still some talent on display here with the film. I think director Jack Begert shows some promise as a director, and I'm excited to see what direction his career goes in. Likewise with the actors in this film, I think everyone did their best with the material they were given. And I appreciate that they were trying something new as far as their narrative style, focusing on two separate stories that do have a connection in the middle. But the end result just didn't work together for me. It didn't create a single cohesive film. Now, if this movie ends up having one enduring legacy over time, it will be a somewhat dark one. This is one of the first movies to make significant use of AI-generated artwork. And it's notable that this film premiered at Sundance, which many people consider to be the premier festival for independent films in the United States. So when you're breaking new territory, I think with that great power comes great responsibility. And this film never makes a convincing case for why they need to lean into AI-generated imagery. At times, I felt like I was watching a tech demo for an AI image generator masquerading as a narrative work. And while at the end of the film there was some dialogue about AI that tried to tie everything together thematically, I wasn't convinced. This will be one of the films that men in boardrooms will use as a blueprint when trying to determine how to reduce the labor budget for visual effects by 10%, 15%, 20%, using AI software. In watching this film, I felt like I was witnessing a piece of film history, but not in a good way. I give it 2 out of 5 stars.